Nobody expected the flight manifest to become the story. But the second royal watchers realized Princess Leonor's international trip had been reorganized at the last minute, different timing, tighter security, unusual coordination, fewer public details, people immediately started asking the same question. What exactly happened behind the scenes? And honestly, I think the palace made a mistake trying to make the whole thing look normal, because the more controlled the information became, the more suspicious the situation started feeling online. You could literally watch the internet shift in real time. At first it was simple curiosity. Then aviation accounts started noticing irregular scheduling. Then royal commentators picked up on the unusually quiet palace response. And suddenly what should have been a routine international movement became one of the most discussed royal stories of the week. Not because people thought Leonor was in danger, but because the energy around the situation felt tense, rushed, carefully managed. And if you've followed modern royal families long enough, you already know this pattern. When palaces release less information than usual, audiences start assuming the real story is happening off camera. That's exactly what happened here. Now obviously, some of the speculation online is getting ridiculous. That always happens. Social media turns tiny inconsistencies into conspiracy theories within hours now. But beneath all the noise, I actually think there's a more interesting conversation happening, one that says a lot about how the monarchy sees Princess Leonor right now. Because this wasn't treated like the movement of a normal royal daughter anymore. This was handled like the movement of an asset. And yes, that wording sounds cold. But I think it matters. Before I go deeper into this, because the details here are fascinating, if you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because what's happening around Princess Leonor lately isn't just royal gossip anymore. It's becoming a real-time case study in how modern monarchies protect, and sometimes overprotect, their future. Now here's the detail I can't stop thinking about. People focused on the emergency flight angle because it sounds dramatic. But honestly, the real story may be the speed of the logistical adjustments themselves. Things changed quickly, quietly, almost too smoothly, which tells me one important thing immediately. The palace already had contingency structures prepared. And that changes how I interpret this entire situation. Because institutions don't build rapid response systems unless they believe the person involved is critically important to stability. That's not just about family anymore. That's about continuity. The future Queen of Spain is no longer being treated publicly like a symbolic figure in training. She's increasingly being handled like someone whose image, safety, and schedule directly affect the institution itself. And honestly, I think viewers are beginning to sense that shift emotionally. That's why every unusual movement around Leonor becomes huge online now. The audience isn't watching passively anymore. They're tracking her story almost like a political transition mixed with celebrity culture. Which is actually something royal institutions still don't fully understand in 2026. Today, attention moves differently. Look at creators like Mr. Beast, for example. The reason people obsess over his projects isn't just spectacle, it's because audiences feel involved in the unfolding narrative. Modern audiences want process, tension, unpredictability. Ironically, Leonor's military training and these sudden logistical moments accidentally create exactly that kind of engagement. Not polished perfection, movement, risk, adaptation, and suddenly the monarchy starts feeling less like a museum and more like a live evolving story people are emotionally invested in. That's powerful, but also dangerous. Because the more emotionally central Leonor becomes, the harder it becomes for the palace to manage public curiosity around her. And this flight situation proved that perfectly. The palace clearly wanted calm messaging. Instead, the lack of transparency created even more obsession. People started asking, why the sudden adjustments? Why the unusual silence? Why did this feel more intense than previous international movements? And honestly, my hot take is this. The palace may be struggling with a new reality where Leonor generates more organic attention than the institution knows how to control comfortably. That changes internal dynamics fast. Especially around Queen Letizia. Now let me be clear, because internet culture loves exaggerating family conflict into full palace wars. I don't think every unusual moment means there's some secret feud happening behind closed doors. But I do think there's visible pressure surrounding how Leonor is being positioned publicly now. You can feel it in the way events are handled. More calculated, more strategic, more cautious. And maybe that's unavoidable, because Leonor's popularity has evolved beyond traditional royal interest. Younger audiences see her differently than previous heirs. They see someone under pressure in real time. Someone navigating military expectations, public scrutiny, generational transition, and constant observation simultaneously. That creates emotional investment, especially when she appears calm through all of it. One thing I noticed recently is how differently Leonor carries herself now compared to even a year ago. The posture, the eye contact, the timing during public interactions. These sound like tiny details, but they completely change perception psychologically. She no longer looks like someone being introduced to responsibility. She looks like someone adapting to it. That's a massive difference. And honestly, I think the palace recognizes it too. Which might explain why these international movements suddenly feel more serious. Because once the public emotionally accepts someone as the future, institutions become extremely protective of unpredictability surrounding that person. That's what this flight situation felt like to me. Not panic, protection. But here's where things become complicated. The more aggressively you protect a future royal figure, the more audiences start sensing distance again. And modern viewers hate distance. They want accessibility, emotional readability, humanity. That's why people respond so strongly to Leonor's unscripted moments. A tired expression, an awkward interaction, a spontaneous smile during military training. Those moments feel real, and real wins online now. Meanwhile, older royal systems still operate on the assumption that mystery strengthens authority. Sometimes it does, but sometimes mystery just creates suspicion. That's exactly what happened around this flight story. And honestly, I think it exposed a deeper issue facing modern monarchies everywhere. How do you maintain institutional security without emotionally disconnecting from audiences raised on constant transparency? Because younger viewers interpret silence differently. Older institutions see silence as dignity. Modern audiences see silence as hidden information. That gap matters enormously now. I also think comparisons with other royal families are impossible to avoid anymore. While Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, continue representing that polished, highly controlled British royal model, Leonor's rise feels less predictable. More transitional, almost experimental. And strangely, that unpredictability may be exactly why younger audiences find her compelling. She still feels human enough to surprise people. That's rare in monarchy branding. But it also creates constant pressure around every movement she makes. Even a flight adjustment becomes international discussion now because viewers sense the stakes around her position increasing. And honestly, I don't think the palace fully anticipated how quickly Leonor would become this emotionally central to the monarchy's future narrative. Military training accelerated everything. It transformed her from future queen someday into future queen already being tested. That changes audience psychology completely. Now people watch her like someone preparing for responsibility in real time, not just inheriting symbolism automatically. And maybe that's why this international flight story exploded emotionally. Not because people cared about logistics themselves, but because the logistics revealed how seriously the institution now takes Leonor's role. That realization changes the way audiences interpret every future move, every schedule adjustment, every appearance, every silence, every sudden international decision. Because deep down, I think Spain is already beginning the emotional transition into the Leonor era long before the official transition actually arrives. And once a country starts emotionally imagining the future that clearly, even one unexpected flight can feel like a glimpse into how fragile, and how carefully managed, that future really is.